Hi everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon everyone. So can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So welcome to today's live coding session, and I hope you guys have been settling down pretty well into your I hope you guys have been settling down into the internship. We've had a lot of issues that we've had to resolve and all, but I think majorly everyone have settled in nicely. So again, I want to implore everyone to please always ensure you go through every course material for important information um, that you should not miss in terms of answering the graded labs and the tag along projects, because they are very important, and we we believe that people at this level should be able to understand what it entails to follow specific instructions and be able to replicate what is needed. So again, I implore all of you to try and ensure to go through each and every course material, the content of each lesson before you go on to partake in the quiz or the tag along course, because if you don't do that, that's when there will be issues of having to resolve a complaint about a graded quiz or the fact that you were taking your quiz. We also include a video of how to go about answering the graded quiz in every lesson. So it should not be new that you only have one opportunity to take the quiz. Immediately you start the quiz, you have to finish it. It's not a quiz where you can say you pause it and you leave it for like a day or two before you continue. Immediately you click on the button to start that quiz, you have to complete that quiz. So we are not in control of the fact that you could have network issues, or the fact that there could be, for example, your power might be low and when you start the quiz is when your laptop or your phone goes off. We are not in control of that. That's why we admonish you guys to ensure that you are in a very favorable condition before you take on the quiz. So once again, I implore you guys to always ensure to go through every course content, every lesson before you attempt the quiz. So I believe you guys can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is up.
All
Yes,
right,
we can.
thank you. Okay, so as I stated last week, we'll be working on pandas today. So pandas, if you guys have gone a bit into your course content, you realize that pandas is a framework that we use for working with tabular data. So it is basically just working with numpy, but instead of working with arrays in their raw form, pandas gives you a pretty way of tabulizing that data. So it's basically, instead of seeing arrays as list of bracket and numbers, pandas is able to make you tabularize that array. You can also work with 3D array, but most times we work with 3D data when we are working with pandas. So just mute the mic. I've not been able to join any. Um, if you have not been able to join any group or get any materials, please send a mail to help@amoye.io. I will type in the email in the chat box. Send a mail to help@amoye.io, and we will look into what is happening for the reason why you've not gotten anything. So you guys should also please endeavor to mute your mic so you won't disturb us while we're going through the session. So endeavor to mute your mics so that we won't have disturbance while going through the session. So as I was saying, send the mail to help@amoye.io, and after sending the mail to help@amoye.io, we should be able to look into this situation. So someone was asking for attendance. Today also there will be no attendance, and we majorly take attendances for the technical sessions. So this session is a live coding session, and we don't prioritize attendance for live coding sessions. We prioritize attendance for our live webinars and our technical sessions. So you can be rest assured and just follow the coding session. It's actually a way to have like an interaction that gives you a practical experience on what is being taught in the stage, in case people are finding it hard to grasp the concepts of things you are saying. So it's a way for you to like see another person do it and probably give you a leverage when you are trying to partake in the course yourself. And as I said last week, we don't expect this to be like a starter of sorts. We expect that interns are knowledgeable a bit about Python and how to code, because it is another ball game to start teaching the syntax or how to use Python for whatever it is we are doing. So we expect that interns have an appreciable knowledge of Python and how to navigate their way through Python, because that will make going through the content of this internship easier for everyone. So today, as I stated, we'll be going through pandas, and for going through pandas, um, we'll be working with different types of data. So to import pandas, as usual, we import pandas and give it an alias called PD. So the first thing we'll be talking about is the PD series. So just as we have 1D array in NumPy, PD series is basically a 1D tabular array. What do we mean by 1D tabular array? It has just one row, or you can say it has just one column. So you can say it has just one column. So um, the the panda series function is a way to create a 1D tabular array that you utilize for whenever you just want to work with a particular data. So something like this, if I say calories is equals to 400, 200, 600, 800, and I come here and I say PD series calories. So once we run this, if I print out my var, let me just add this here. So when I print this out, you see that we have a series. This series has 400 as the first one, 200 at the second index, 600 at this index, and 800 at the last index, which is what. Please endeavor to mute your mic so we don't have issues hearing and getting across to every other participant. Thank you. So as I was saying, my var is equals to this. So if I print out the type of my var and I run this code, you see that it is a call series, and it is of the series type. So a PD series is used for creating basically a one column. You can call it a one row because you access it the same way, a one column or a one row array. And you can see that the index is as usual in Python, the index is indexed from 0 through to the index is indexed from 0 through to 4 as expected. So if I come here, something you can do is you can specify the index of the series. So for example, as usual, as you if I say my var 0, this is me indexing for the first value in the in the PD series, which is 0. If I go back here and say my var 1, that's the second item in the list. So you can do something, but pandas gives you a better way of accessing your data. So you might not want to use the conventional way of indexing. You might want to have You might want to have a particular way you want to index your data. Let's say, for example, now I don't want it to just be that. I want the index. So I want to have calories for 4 days. So I can say the indexes will be you can use string as your indexes even. So I can say this is day one, a comma, this is day two, a comma. So this will be day three, and lastly, this will be day four. So if I run this now, and we get my var, you can see now that instead of indexing with 0 to 3, just as it did previously, now we are indexing with day one, we're indexing with day two, we're indexing with day three. So if I want to access the elements in this my var now, I can now decide to access with what? Day one as the index. If I do this, so I've gotten that the calorie for day one is what? Is 400. But what if I come here and say I want to use 0 as usual? I should get an index error, but this is still working because um the way they create this stuff is that they know that it's possible that you want to it's possible you want to have an index that you can use numerically and also without numbers. So if you do something like this, there's um a function of this called loop. You can see now that we're having an error because 0 is not specified. But if I change this now and say that this is day one, this should give me what? 400. So this is just me showing you that you can have other ways to get access to your data depending on how you want it to be. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just from 0 to the ending of the stuff as it will be. So this gives you a cleaner way for you to get access to your data and work with the data sets that you have. um Another way, so this is one way to create a series. Another way you can create a series is what we had before, where we had a dictionary. So in the dictionary now, so I will just take away this index. In the dictionary now, so we have key and value pairs. So day one is going to be 2, day 3, sorry, day 2 is going to be 4, day 3 is going to give us 5, and lastly, let's put day 4 to be 6. So if I do this now and I take away this stuff and I run this code, you can see now that automatically what we were specifying index for, we don't have to specify index again. This is we using a key value pair of a dictionary to create a what? A pandas series. So if you create a pandas series of a key value pair, you would see that you get a what? Automatically the keys are used as the index and the values are what? Used as the values of those arrays. So another thing you can do is you can use my var dot values for any pandas stuff you create, any pandas array, because they are all called they are all called data frames, but this is a series data frame. So for any pandas enabled series or data frame, you can use this method called dot values that will give you every value that is in that every value that is in that pandas, if it is a series or database, without the index. So that's for series. So the next thing we'll go into is let us go into data frames. So data frames is what you work with most popularly, because most times you have what? More than one column that you're working with in your data. Your data set will always have more than one column. Your data set will always have more than one row. So data frame is a way for you to have multiple rows and multiple columns in the same data set. So basically, it is moving from 1D numpy array to what? To 2D numpy array. It's moving from 1D numpy array to what? To 2D numpy array. So moving from 1D numpy array to 2D numpy array. So to create a data frame is basically the same thing, but when you create a data frame, you use the dot data frame. And please note that it is what? Capital letter D and capital letter F. because it is an issue that probably people make when you are new to pandas. You try to use small letter f, so it is capital letter G and capital letter F. And in creating a data frame, you have to like specify. If you try to create a data frame with a list, it would work here, but might not give you exactly what is it that you need. For example, if I try to just create a data frame with this and run this, you see now that instead of writing it the way it was written as a series, you can see now that we have a table. So you can see that this table does not have a column. The column is just set 0. So if I do something now here and specify something called column is equals to, so let me say that the column should be columns. So columns is equals to, let me give it a name and give it numbers. And if I run this now, you see that now instead of 0 as the what, as the name of the column, this column is now called what, numbers, and it has 1 2 3 4 5, which is what is specified in this list as the what, as the values of this column. So you can do more than that. So if I want to do something now, for example, that is going to be like, so this is 1, so I can give it another one. This one is square. So this will be 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, and 5 times 5 is 25. So if I come here and say square norms, and we run this, see that this is now giving an issue because 2 columns were passed, but this data set has what, 5 columns. So this is not the particular way. When you are trying to create your stuff with just list for a data frame, especially when you are going to a 2D array, you will run into an error. So the best way when you are creating data frames is to use what, dictionaries. So when you use a dictionary, when you are creating a data frame, it gives you ability to what, specify the what, the it gives you ability to specify the column name as the key, and then the list of values, which will be the what, the row. So let's do that here. So if I say data frame, and this will now be a dictionary. So in this dictionary, the first thing we want to have is what, numbers. Okay, so for this now, I'll specify a list 1 2 3 4 and 5. So I'll put a comma now. So the next thing I'll have is what, squared numbers. So the value for this is going to be 1 4 9 16 and 25. So after doing this, so okay, I have an error in this.
There should be a comma after name.
Sorry?
A comma after name. I think you missed one comma after name. Square num.
Square numbers. There's actually a
Yeah,
comma
after
here.
between 9 and 16.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes. So that's the reason why I was having that error. So after creating this, you see now that we have a data frame where you can see the first thing we have is the column names and numbers, and the next thing we have are what, square numbers. So this is a easy way. So you don't just have, so this is me. So if I just say that this is my what, df is the most popular name that we use to name data frames. So if I name this df, once I name this df, if I come here and say df, it will show me what df is. If I say df dot loc 0 and I run this, it will give me the what, the first row. So the first row, the value for numbers in the first row is 1. The value for number in the square numbers is, if I come here and change this to 1, this will give me what, stuff. So that even when you are creating a data frame also, you also still have the power to specify column names. So if I come here now and say columns is equals to, and I still specify. So now instead of it to be, I'll say no, and then I'll change. Okay, this should be inside the list. So yeah, I'll say no, and the other one will be what, square dot no. So if I run this and I print out df here, you see that instead of having um, numbers and stuff, you see these are, but the reason why this is coming empty is because we are using a dictionary to create this data frame. So when you are using a dictionary to create this data frame, pandas is expecting that the values in for each the values for each name is going to be going to be assigned the values. Like this key is the column, so every value to this key is what should be assigned. So when you come here and specify a column name that is not in any of this key, you have an empty data frame. So you only use this when you are creating this from, let's say you are able to structure your list very well, or you are using a numpy array, for example. So let's say I come here, let me import numpy as numpy. So if I import numpy as numpy, um sorry, import numpy as np. So after importing numpy, if I come here now and say I'm creating an array, so let me say arr is equals to np dot array. So it will be inside a list. So the first list will contain this. If you remember what we did, so this is the first list, control v, and then the second list will contain whatever it is we have here, control c, and then put this here. So just to confirm our array was created the way we expect it, let me view what array is. Yeah, let me view what the array is. So we can see that the array is this exactly. So this has been created. So if I come here now and remove this dictionary here, and I just create this data frame from this array and specify that the columns should be this. If I run this, is 2 5, indices imply 2 2. Okay, so sorry, you can see why I have an issue. I'm having an issue because the array I created has 2 rows and 5 columns basically. So this is 1 2 and 5 columns. So if I want to create something that will work for this, I'm meant to create something like this. So I'm meant to create 1 1. Okay, so this other one here,
Or can you just reshape the array?
that's the thing.
Array.
If you want to reshape the array, you cannot just reshape it from 2 5. That should be possible actually, but because of the constraints that we have to keep, so this is just me basically reshaping it that to make the columns. So if I'm reshaping this, I'm going to say reshape this into 2 5. Let's see if that will work.
5 2.
Sorry, 5 2. So thank you for that suggestion. So this is how it is in the world of programming. You cannot know it all. Someone will give you a method that is better than the one that you are using. So after reshaping this array now, you can see that I have an array. So if I just come here, I don't have to, if I just come here and reshape this into 5 2, sorry, 5 2. So if I just run this now, as no reshape, oh, I did not spell this well, reshape. So if I run this now, you can see that our data frame was successfully created. So if I open the data frame, you can see now that for numbers we have one stuff, but this is not even working as I expected. So that's why reshaping it that way, you can see now that it is it just like based on what array was previously. Let me just show you. Based on what array was previously, so what it does was it just took 1 2, it made 1 2 turn to this.
You just
Then
reshape the data
it
considering the values.
exactly. So without considering, so another thing that could be tried is to do a transpose. So if I do a transpose, you can see now that we transpose is like the mathematical term of converting a matrix, converting the columns to row and the rows to the column. So you can see that now if I do a transpose 1 1 2 4 3 9, so this is actually what we need. So if I come here and just remove this reshape stuff that I have here and make this the transpose, and I create a data frame from this. So you can see now that we have what 1124 39 416 and 525. So it's not rocket science, it's not something that's like it's magic, you just have to, it's intuition. So after you practice with a lot of methods and stuff, you'll be able to come up with ideas that will work perfectly for whatever it is that you want to create. So this is basically a data frame with pandas and with data frame. So just like as I said earlier, so if we come here now and use values, you see that what will be returned is a 2D array of all the values in the data set. So the df.values have just given me the arrays that we used to create these pandas. So what brought me here was me trying to tell you that when you want to specify column names, you are sure that what you are using to create the data frame does not have a method in it that will give the data frame an inclination of what the column name should be. So when you are using an empty array that does not have headers, then you can specify columns name. You can also create a data frame from the series. So we'll do something like that when we are going through where you have, but when you are creating a data frame from a series, you have to ensure that the length are the same. So if the length are not the same, you introduce null values or things like that into your data frame. So after working on data frame, the next thing that we should talk about is the read CSV function. So this is basically what we have been trying to show you in the tag along, where you have to like read something from the CSV. Some people have also, we've also had issues where people are like the link is not working. So just to do this again, I'm going to change, let me switch the tab that I'm sharing. Let me come here. So this is the tab that we are directing you people to for our, this is the link here. So if I just copy this, let me copy this, let me go to another page first, google.com. So if I come here and just copy this link, this is the link we are providing, and I press enter, it takes me directly to this page. So once it takes you directly to this page and you click on this, your data what gets downloaded automatically. So you guys might not be able to see that, but this data set is being downloaded. So what I'll do is I'll go back to Collab and show you that this data set has been downloaded on my system. The data set is 8.2 MB. And after you download this data set into your system, that's when you load it. So we don't expect you to load it directly from the link. That's not how it works. You can only read CSV from a CSV file. So if you want to use it directly in your Jupyter notebook, if you are vast enough, there's something that you can use called wget. So you use wget to download the CSV file in place. So after using wget to download the CSV file, then you read in the CSV file. But we are not expecting you to read the CSV file from the link that we provided. So we expect you to come here and download the CSV file for you to use it for whatever it is, the questions that we have set for you in the graded labs. So that is still downloading, but what I actually want, the data set I actually want to use to explore today is the iris data set. So the iris data set is a very, very popular data set. Like there's no one that is working that is like vast in ML and all that have not worked with this data set at one time or the other. So this is just me. I just came to Google and I just type iris data set CSV. I intentionally chose GitHub. So I just chose a random GitHub page that has this data set. And once I come here to download this zip, once this downloads successfully on my computer, I'll be able to I'll be able to copy this and just use it on my system. So let me do something. Let me copy this link. So if I go back to my Collab notebook, let me share this tab. If I go back to my Collab notebook, just as I said, so what I was saying previously was this wget. So if you wget, so this link, I got this link. Let me share this tab again. So the way I got this link was I came here. So this is the link we click to download. So instead of clicking this link that initiates the download, I copied it. So what I did was I copied this link. So after copying this link, I'm coming back to this Collab tab here, and then I'm using the wget function. It's actually a Linux function, and that's, as I said previously, these are things that after learning programming for a while somewhere, we should have interacted with this. So we are not expecting that we are working with like the very very basic. We're expecting people that at least have an idea of how all of these things work. So when you do this, yeah, you can see that if I come here and refresh this page now, this stuff has been downloaded as a CSV file in this, and this is what we expect you to use. So even if I don't want to use this way, if I create, let me just create a new folder so I'll not be having name conflicts. Let me call it FF. If I come here, FF, and select a new folder, you guys will not be able to see this, but you will see that I'm going to select this from my system. It was just downloaded on my system, and it's telling me that any file I'm uploading, because this is collab, you can see it here. It is being loaded in. It is being loaded in into this place, and once it's finished loading in, I'll be able to use it as what? I'll be able to use it as a CSV file. So basically, going on to the data that I actually want us to use for today. So that's just me trying to like showcase to read in the um how to read in the CSV file that we are providing for you guys, for those that have not gone through the course. But all of this stuff are things that we have documented already. We documented all of this in how to take a graded lab and stuff. So if you guys are like can you put in the formula? There is no formula for square norms. It is just a number. I'm not using any formula yet. I'm the one that just wrote that pandas data frame. You can actually do it with a formula, yes, maybe, but I've not even done anything relating to formula or data something. We might not be able to do that today, but we'll do a bit of it, and then we'll do more, and then visualization. That's what we'll do over the next two live coding sessions that we'll be having. So I've not done anything about the formula and stuff. So the sample data set that I'll be using for today is the iris data set. So what I'll do is I'll drop the link to the page for the iris data sets. So this Control C, and then on the chat group. So I've Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yes, we can.
I think I just accidentally pressed back or something. So sharing my screen again. So I was about to drop the. So I hope you guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the iris data sets that I'm using for this live coding session. So this is the link where you can download it. So you can download it via this link. So once you click on that link there, you'll be able to get the data set and probably play with it on your own. So as I was saying, so I've downloaded it on my local system. I'll just come here to upload it. So I think okay, I have to unzip it first. I could have done all of this, but I just wanted you guys to see that we are downloading this data set and it's working as expected. So there's nothing wrong with the quiz or the data sets that we are expecting you guys to download. So coming here to upload this file. Yeah, in here. Okay. So you can see that the iris data set has been uploaded successfully. So to use the so I'm going to call this data. You can use any variable. Ed, the function to read in from TSV is read underscore CSV. So after you read in from TSV, you just have to specify the file name. So this might be another thing that is giving some people error, because when you are working in your local folder, you might have the iris.csv saved in another folder, but your notebook is open in another folder. So you should be able to navigate the path to where your file is. These are not things that we expect, because we have had issues before where people are saying the file is not working because they are trying to read in the file where it is not existing. So you should be able to navigate all of these things, because these are things that we are not expected to be dwelling upon, seeing at this stage, when we have gotten to this stage in machine learning, or even when you are starting. But at least there should be those ground knowledge available, and it's not too late. That's why we gave you guys those prerequisite courses. If you are done with the prerequisite courses and you feel it's not good enough, there are still materials that you can use online to just catch up, to be able to what partake all of these things. So the name of the data set is iris underscore datasets dot csv, and once you load this in, you can see that my data has been loaded in. So if I do data and I run this, so as you can see, this is the old data. It has what 150 rows and 5 columns. So the name of the columns are sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. So you, over time, you work with data sets that has much more columns than this. You work with data sets that are way larger than this, but this is just a beginner. So this is the function to read a data from a CSV. So you can only read from a CSV. Pandas also has the function to read from JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation files. There are JSON files that the JSON file will also contain the data set in JSON format. So Pandas has created that this tool. So read CSV. If you open a CSV file without using the read CSV, you see that the way it works is that everything, okay, still trying to open it. Is there a way to open it in a raw form? I doubt. So because CSV are very popular, so people understand what CSV are meant to be. I was hoping we can, if you can to be on my local system or a VS Code, if you open a CSV file, you see that each of these things are just separated with commas. So after sepal length, there's a comma. After sepal width, there's a comma. After this, okay, I think we should be able to see that. Is there a way to see that? Okay, let me see if let me share this tab. Let me see if we can see the raw file. Exactly. So this is the raw file of the data sets that we're working with. And as you can see, everything is just separated with a comma. So this is the column name, the first one, comma, the other column name, all of the column names separated with comma first. And then each value that belongs to each column is just separated with a comma, 5.1, comma, 3.5. So this is basically what a CSV file is. So Pandas has just written a code that knows that, okay, after you get to a comma, this is the column. After I get to a column, comma, this is the column, this. When you get to a comma, know that you have gone to the next value. That's basically what the read CSV that we are using here. That's basically what that function is doing. So back to the collab tab. So after reading in the data sets, then you can start performing some operations on the data sets. So these operations are, you can start performing some operations. These operations, we basically use it to gain information about the data or to like clean the data. So the easiest one, the one that we use the most, is data.shape. So with data.shape, this gives you the number of rows and the number of columns. So you can see that this is a 2D data. Most data sets that you work with are data frames, they are 2D data. So when you are going from 2D to 3D, it is not advisable to use data, pandas, because pandas works efficiently when your data is in 2D. So that's data.shape. We also have something called data.edge. So with data.edge, it gives you the first, if you don't provide a number, it will give you the first 5 rows of the data set. So this row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and row 5. You can then provide a number. Say, okay, I want the first 8. So when you say this, it has increased to what? 8. If you say 10, it has increased to what? To 10. So just as the way we have data.tail, we also have data.tail. So when you do data.tail, with data.tail, it's also the what? So, but instead of going from top to bottom, you are going from bottom to top. So if I want the last 5 things, if you don't provide the number, it will give you the last 5 things. You can see the index 145. So this is basically 150, 149, and so. But the reason why we are not getting to 150 is because in Python we index from what? From 0. So if I want the last 10 things, I just provide 10 into this place, and this will work as expected. So another thing that we do is we check for null values. So null values are values that are what? Null values are basically values that are not provided in the data sets. So I might try to recreate a scenario where we have a null value, but basically when you do data.isNow, what this does is that it goes through each and every row and each and every column and checks if there's a value. So because there's a value here, this space is not null. Because there's a value here, this space is not null. Because there's a value, this is not null. So it does it for all of this, but this is not comprehensible. So imagine you had something of like 1005 something. Even you can see that we cannot see everything of the data set. We are already seeing 0 to 4 and then the last 5. So all of this, we don't know if there will be a place that they have been what, that there is true where there's a null value. So to check the null value, you need to add another function called sum. So when you do it this way, what this does is that it goes through each column one by one, check for the null value. When the null value is true, it makes it 1. If the null value is false, it makes it 0. And then it sums up the number of ones in that column and then writes it out. So if it happens that you have a column that has a null value, all of these values here will not be 0. This value is there. If there was just one null value, here will be 1. If there were 244 null values, here will be 277. So this is how to check if there are null values in your system. So these are like standard procedures when you are working with a new data set, standard things that you have to do. You have to check the shape of the data. You need to know how your data is distributed. Like another thing that we do is we do data.info. So when you do data.info, data.info gives you another way for you to check the null value. So when you can see 150 non-null is telling you the amount of things that actually have value. So if I had 148 non-null values here, that means I had 2 null values. So this is another way for you to just guess what the number of values. But with this way, you know the exact number of null values. But with this, you just have an inkling into if there is no value or not. Another popular function that we use is called the data.describe. So what this does is that it describes your data for you. DSCRIBE. So when you run this, you can see what it has done is for each of the columns, it has counted the number of values in that column. So for each of those columns, we have 150 values. If we add no values in any of the column, it will not be up to 150. So it calculates the mean. So you can see that the mean. So after going through all of the values in separate lengths, the mean is 5.8. All of the values in separate width, the mean is this value. This is the standard deviation. This is the minimum value. That's the least value you can find in this column. So the least value in separate length column is 4.3, and the least value in this column is 0.1. Then it gives you the average. So this is the average value that you can find here. So the average value here is 5.8. The average value here is 3. And then we have the 75%. So this does basically you splitting it into what percentile. This is the 25th percentile, average, the third percentile, and then the maximum value for each of these columns. So this is a way for you to have an idea of okay, what's the range of values in this column, what's this, what's that. And one thing you should note is that describe only works for what? For data types that are what? Float or integers. You can see in this data set when we are checking the D type, the D type here is floats. The D type here is floats. The D type here is float. Here is float, but here we also have objects. So when you are checking the data.describe, it is only those columns that are either float or integers that will work. Why? Because all of these stuff that are being calculated, they are what? They are numerical methods. They are not methods that can work for objects. They are not methods that can work for text. So why is this one called object? The reason why the target is of a D type object is because it has a string. If you can remember correctly, when we were taking the last live coding session, I mentioned it that with pandas you have the opportunity to have what? You have the opportunity to combine arrays that have different D types together. So with different D types, what we mean by different D types is that you can combine, you can see now that we are combining both. You can see now that we are combining both you can see now that we are combining both the we are combining both the string data type and the float data type in one data set, in one data frame. That's one of the power of pandas, because it allows you to be able to achieve this. Normally a numpy array will expect that everything in that numpy array is the same. So you can check that everything in that numpy array is the same. So as I was saying, so when you call the describe function, the describe function will only work for every column that the D type of that column contains a what? Contains either integer or what? Or float. So that's for data.describe. So one other popular one that we use is when we are analyzing the data, because all of these functions that I've been speaking about here, they are called the functions for analyzing data. So um, another one that we can use to work with, but this one is not for analyzing data, is you can also use pandas to what, to clean your data set. So when you clean your data set, you begin to have like you begin to have like that's when you start working on making your data set fit for machine learning models. Because one thing first is that you cannot use a data set that has null values for a machine learning model. There are new models now that can probably take that, but the standard is your data set should be in a ready to train format. So when we say ready to train format, that means you have cleaned the data set. And one of the things you have to clean in the data set is string. You cannot give a machine learning model a data set that has the object G type as one of its as one of the D type of one of its column, and expect that to work. You cannot use that. Um, so as Mayan has have stated in the as Miriam have stated in the column, you can see that if you use df dot describe include all. So she's saying that if you want to include all of the columns in this of, all you just have to do is to come here and say that I want to include all of the columns, and when you do this, all of the columns will come. But you can see now that for this we are having non values for this part, because the non values, this now is working for the categorical aspect. So for working for the categorical aspect, you can see that the things that it is trying to get is the unique value in that categorical aspect, the top value that we have, and the frequency of each value that we have for the top value. But all of this cannot work for numerical data. So that's why this is basically an example of a null value. So if I assign this into a df, let me call this sub df and say this. So if I come here now and now perform this action of sub df dot is now dot sum, and I run this, you see now that we have we have three null columns in this place, we have three here and we have seven here. So that's basically one of the things that you can do with pandas when you are working on data sets. So the other thing that we can do with data sets is cleaning of data sets. So the easiest way to clean data sets is to drop the null value. So if I do something like this, drop now and enter this. So that's, you can see that after dropping all of the null values, we have just one value left, which is count. The reason why we have this is because if we go into sub df, you can see that every row and every column has at least one non value in that column. So if it drops every row and every column that has a non value in them, this is the only row that does not have a non value. So this row has this number of non values, this row has this number of non values, this row. So that is what comes in when you are trying to drop your null values. You don't just drop them, you need to have like a strategy to know how to drop the null values. So when you want to drop your null values, you first look at, okay, is there a column that has too many null values? So for example, now in this sub df, if I say, okay, sub df, so one thing you should also know is that you can drop a column. For example, if I come here now and drop this column called target, TRGET, this should give me an error at first. Method is not subscriptable. Okay, sorry, I did not provide the bracket. So if I do this now, you see that this is giving me an error. It is saying target is not found in axis, because when you want to drop a column, you know that we are talking about row and column. So the row is seen as axis 0 and the column is seen as axis 1. So if I come here and provide that I want to drop this on axis 1, so this is me telling this pandas, this data set, that the column I want to drop, it is a column, and you will find this name called target in in axis 1. So if I run this now, this will work successfully. Now you can see that now there is no target. This is basically we running .describe without including the all. So after doing this now, if I say that, let me call this one sub df underscore 2, Let me call this sub df. Okay, I call it sub underscore df. So if I take this now into a variable, so you now see that now if I say sub underscore df and I check the sub df, so if I now drop the null values in this column, dot drop now, you will see that now I will not have an empty what? I will not have an empty table. Even though you can see now that I'm not having an empty table, but even from where I got this sub df, if I just do the drop now and drop all the null values, you see that we're having a what? Oh, I've sub df. So this is sub df dot drop now. You can see that we have nothing. So let me call this one sub df2. Okay, and then sub df2 dot drop any. So you can see that just by performing one action of dropping one column, after dropping that column, then dropping the null values, instead of getting a data frame with just one row, you are getting a data frame with this number of rows. So when you are cleaning your data, you need to come up with strategies that will make you have the what, the best number of data set available to you, because when you're working with data, the more data you have, the better your model performs. The more data you have, the better your model performs. So when your model okay, there's a question, what if about 150 columns does not show all the columns and their null values? Oh, it's something like that. If you have more than 150 columns, if it does not show all of them, you can just use a for loop. So after you get the sum for all of them, you can go through a for loop that will print out the name of the column and then the null values. So as someone has said, you write a Python code for that. Those are things that you can figure out on your own. So as I've said, so when you are trying to drop your null values, you have to figure out the best strategy to drop your null value, because just discriminately dropping um, your null values anyhow can just lead to loss of what data. And if you work with fewer data set for your model will also perform suboptimally when it sees new data. It will not be able to what generalize completely. So the idea is that when you are dropping your values, you drop it with a working strategy that you have come up with. And it's not rocket science. It's not as if the strategy that you come up with wants to work. You can have dropped it a while. You see that after dropping it this way, it does not work. You go back to your data sets. That's why we have all of these things, and you can use different variable name. So you don't have to like be worried about the fact that probably you have done something to your data set. And the wonderful thing about all of this is that if I come here, let's say I come here now and I disconnect my runtime. Let me come to my runtime here. Let me disconnect this runtime. So if I disconnect this runtime, I will lose all of my variables. So let me do runtime. Let me start a new runtime. I'll lose all of my variables. So for example, if I come here now and say what is df2 or sub df, it will tell me that it does not know what sub df is. But immediately I upload my data set, I upload my iris data set. Once this uploads and I keep running every cell again from the beginning, let me skip all of this one because we do not need this one. So everything I want from here, as long as it was correct when you did it, all you just have to do is to rerun your column. And when you get back to that point, you get exactly the same thing that you had before. So the only time you not got exactly the same thing is when you are when you have introduced random or a random variable. So you can see that even though we don't have sub df, so even if you lose your progress where you are, as long as the data set is not too heavy, what you just have to do is to rerun your columns and you get back to that point where you were. So this is just a basic understanding. This is not everything. There are still more that we have outlined in your more of these that we have outlined in your course material. So you just have to go through them. And as I have said, you have to be able to like go through documentation, because there's nowhere where you get knowledge that you are shown everything that you need to know. What anybody can do anyway is just give you the basic foundation you need, and you have to keep, yeah, it's a conscious process for you to make sure that you keep learning more and you keep doing more for yourself. So you can go through the documentation of pandas, work on projects, because when we get to the next stage, we work on classification and regression and stuff like that, and you see more into how all of these things work. So that will be the end of today's live coding session, because we just want to like introduce what's basically what Panda is. So next, for our next live coding session, which is basically going to be on Friday, if there are no changes, we are going to do a little bit, we are going to work with a little bit more of a larger data. So I've prepared the data sets beforehand and probably share it on Slack, or after the live coding session, the data set will be shared. So we'll work with a bit of a larger data, and we'll try to perform all of these cleaning operations. So we'll clean the data set, make sure that the data set has a lot of empty values, clean the data sets, try to do some type of manipulations with pandas on that data set, and then that will get us ready for when we are going to go towards visualization for the last live coding session. So thank you all for your attendance. It is highly appreciated, and as we say, please try to make sure that ensure that you go through the course content um thoroughly before you before you answer your graded quiz, because once you are aware of the instructions that you are meant to follow, you will not be having most of these issues that we are facing for this not be having most of these issues that we are facing on that we're facing inside in the internship. So once again, thank you all for coming today, and it was nice having you all. Please, the session has ended today, so everyone can leave the session. Thank you.
Thank you.